Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
I should have noticed the champagne glasses were different sizes. That's the kind of detail I'm trained to catch. I'm an architect, for God's sake. I spend my days obsessing over millimeters, over the way light falls through windows at 3 p.m. versus 5 p.m. But on the day my wife earned her PhD, standing in that university courtyard with paper lanterns swaying overhead and her academic colleagues mingling in their formal regalia, I didn't notice that her glass was full while mine was barely half poured. I didn't notice a lot of things. To Dr. Emma Caldwell, I raised my glass, grinning like an idiot. 7 years of late nights, endless revisions, and me learning way too much about behavioral neuroscience. Emma smiled, that particular smile I'd learned to read over our 9 years together. The one that didn't quite reach her eyes but looked perfect in photographs. She was wearing the navy dress I'd helped her pick out 3 weeks earlier. Her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look both professional and devastatingly beautiful. Around us, her cohort cheered, phones raised to capture the moment. "Thank you, Nathan," she said, her voice steady, clear. "For everything." I thought she meant the sacrifices, the extra shifts I'd taken at the firm to cover her tuition, the dinners I'd cooked while she studied, the social events I'd attended alone because she had conferences or research deadlines. I thought I was reading gratitude in her eyes. I wasn't. "Emma, there's someone who wants to meet you," Professor Hartwick called out, gesturing toward a silver-haired woman in an expensive suit. "From the Institute in Boston." Emma touched my arm, brief, almost apologetic, and moved away. I watched her go, watched how she transformed the moment she entered that conversation. More animated, more present than she'd been with me in months. Maybe longer. I told myself it was just the excitement of the day, the culmination of all that work. I told myself a lot of things that afternoon. The party stretched into the evening. I made small talk with people whose research I didn't understand, whose inside jokes about their department sailed past me. Emma's friend Sarah, the one with the sharp laugh who always seemed to be evaluating me, kept refilling my glass. I remember thinking it was generous of her. Nathan, right? A man about my age approached, holding 2 beers. He offered me one. "I'm Derek. I was in Emma's cohort." "Nice to meet you," I said, grateful for someone who wasn't discussing neuroplasticity. "Did you finish too?" "Last semester. Already started at a lab in Seattle." He took a long drink. "Emma's brilliant, you know. Her dissertation on decision-making under emotional stress. Revolutionary stuff. She'll have her pick of positions." "I know. I'm really proud of her." Derek's expression shifted slightly, something I couldn't quite read. "That's good. That you're proud. Not everyone." Well, this kind of success can be hard on relationships. The long distance offers, the time commitment. "We'll figure it out," I said automatically. "We always do." He nodded slowly, glanced over at Emma, who was now surrounded by a group of professors, animated and radiant. "Yeah, I'm sure you will." The weird thing is, I remember feeling uneasy then. Not suspicious, just this low-level discomfort, like when you're standing in a building and something about the structure feels off, but you can't identify what. The weight distribution is wrong, or the foundations aren't quite level. You just know something's not right. "Nathan." Emma appeared at my elbow, her cheeks flushed with wine and accomplishment. "We're going to dinner. You coming?" We went to Marcello's, the Italian place where I'd proposed 4 years earlier. I thought it was sentimental. Looking back, I wonder if it was something else. A bookend, maybe. The group was large. 12 people crammed around a long table, voices overlapping, wine flowing freely. I sat at one end, Emma at the other. She was holding court, telling a story I couldn't quite hear over the noise, her hands moving expressively. Everyone was laughing. Sarah leaned across the table toward me. How does it feel? Knowing she's done now. Amazing, I said. She deserves this. No, I mean, Sarah's smile was peculiar. Knowing that this chapter is closed. For both of you. Well, there's still postdoc stuff, job searching. Right? Of course. She sat back, exchanging a glance with the woman next to her that I couldn't interpret. Hey, Emma. Remember when Nathan thought your research was about rats? The table erupted in laughter. Emma's laugh was loudest. I never said rats, I protested, trying to join in the joke even though something about it felt cruel. I said it involved observational studies. Close enough, Emma said, still laughing. Her eyes met mine across the table, and for just a second, I saw something there, something that made my chest tighten. Then she looked away, raising her glass for another toast. I went to the bathroom around 10 p.m., navigated the narrow hallway past the kitchen. On my way back, I heard voices from the private dining room, Emma's voice, and Sarah's. Didn't expect him to actually come tonight, Sarah was saying. I invited him. It would have been obvious if I hadn't. Emma's tone was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. Besides, this is cleaner. Cleaner? That's cold even for you. It's practical. Why drag it out? This way everything's in one place, one moment. Efficient. I should have walked away, or I should have pushed the door open. Instead, I stood there, frozen, my hand on the wall to steady myself. Does he know? Sarah asked. Not yet. Give me an hour. Let him enjoy the night a little longer. You're unbelievable. I'm realistic. We had an arrangement, Sarah. I was clear from the beginning about what this was. I didn't hear the rest. I walked back to the table on autopilot, sat down, picked up my wine glass and realized my hand was shaking. Across from me, Derek was watching with that same unreadable expression from earlier. The dinner ended around 11:30. Everyone spilled out onto the sidewalk, hugging, making plans to meet up again. Emma was in the center of it all, glowing, victorious. I stood at the edge, my mind racing through every conversation we'd had in the past year, trying to find the arrangement she'd mentioned, trying to understand what I'd missed. Nathan, can you get an Uber? Emma called out. I'm going to Sarah's for a bit. Girl talk. Actually, I'll walk, I said. Our apartment was only a mile away. She frowned slightly. It's late. I need the air. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Impatience? Then she shrugged. Okay, don't wait up. I walked. The May evening was warm. The streets still busy with college students celebrating the end of term. I walked past the coffee shop where Emma and I had spent countless Sunday mornings in our early years, when she was just starting the PhD program and I was a junior architect trying to make a name for myself. I walked past the park where we'd had our first real fight. About what? I couldn't even remember now. About something that had seemed important at the time. I got home around 12:30. Our apartment. Sorry, my apartment. I'd been paying the rent alone for 3 years now while Emma focused on her research. Felt empty in a way it hadn't before. I looked at the bookshelf full of her neuroscience texts, at the framed photo from our wedding, at the coffee mug she'd left on the counter that morning, at all the evidence of a shared life. Then I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I don't know what I was looking for. Confirmation? Contradiction? I pulled up Emma's email. We'd always had each other's passwords. A gesture of trust from earlier, happier days. I told myself I was just checking, just making sure I was wrong about what I'd overheard. The first email I saw was from Dr. Hartwick, sent 3 weeks earlier. Emma, confirming your acceptance of the research position at Boston Institute. Start date August 1st. Congratulations again. My stomach dropped. She'd accepted a job across the country and hadn't told me. I scrolled down. There were emails about apartment rentals in Boston, about shipping quotes for furniture, and this one made me actually laugh, a harsh sound in the quiet apartment. about dissolution of marriage procedures in Massachusetts versus Illinois. The most recent email from yesterday was from someone named Jordan Mitchell. Can't wait to finally have you here full-time. These weekend visits have been amazing but not enough. Your research is brilliant and you're brilliant. August can't come soon enough. I read that email 3 times. For 5 weekend visits. For how long? I thought about all the conferences Emma had attended, all the research trips. How many of those had been to Boston? How many had been to see Jordan Mitchell? I heard keys in the door around 2 a.m. Emma came in, kicked off her heels, saw me sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. "You're still up," she said. "I thought you'd be asleep." "Who's Jordan Mitchell?" To her credit, she didn't pretend not to know. She just sighed, set down her purse, and poured herself a glass of water. "Someone I work with." "Work with? That's interesting phrasing." "Nathan." "How long?" She was quiet for a moment, studying me. Then, "Does it matter?" "Yes, it fucking matters." "A year, maybe 14 months. It started at a conference in Cambridge. I felt like I'd been punched. A year, 14 months of her coming home, sleeping next to me, letting me believe we were still us. So what was the plan? My voice sounded strange, distant. "Wait until tonight to tell me? Spring it on me after your big achievement." Emma sat down across from me. Her face was calm, composed, the same face she probably used when presenting research, when dealing with difficult data. "I was going to tell you tomorrow, actually. Tonight was supposed to be celebratory. I didn't want to ruin it." "How considerate." "I know you're angry. Do you?" I stood up, started pacing. "Do you have any idea how I feel right now? Betrayed. Hurt. I get it." She took a sip of water. "But Nathan, be honest. Has this really been working? Between us?" "What are you talking about? We barely see each other. When we do, we have nothing to talk about. You stopped being interested in my work years ago. That's not fair. I supported you through this entire program. Financially, yes. Emotionally," she shook her head. "You checked out, Nathan. You've been going through the motions for at least 2 years. So this is my fault?" The laugh that came out of me was bitter. "You cheat on me for a year and it's my fault?" "I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying we both stopped trying. The difference is, I found someone who actually engages with my work, who understands what I'm doing. I tried to understand. You tried to tolerate it. There's a difference." Emma stood up too, faced me across the kitchen. "Look, I know this is painful, but wouldn't you rather be with someone who doesn't need you to pretend to care about neuroplasticity? Who shares your actual interests?" "I share your interests. I came to every presentation, every defense. You came because that's what you thought you were supposed to do. When was the last time you asked me about my research because you genuinely wanted to know?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. She was right, I had stopped asking. Somewhere around year 4 of her PhD, when the conversations became incomprehensible strings of technical terms, when she seemed to speak a language I couldn't learn, I'd stopped trying to follow. I thought that was okay. I thought supporting her meant showing up, paying bills, being present physically even if I couldn't be present intellectually. "This isn't about research," I finally said. "This is about respect, about honesty. You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have asked for a divorce before fucking someone else. Would you have heard me?" Emma's voice rose for the first time. "Nathan, I tried. 2 years ago, I suggested couples therapy. You said we didn't need it. Last year, I tried to talk about our future, about what would happen after I finished. You changed the subject. Every time I tried to have a real conversation about us, you deflected." I stared at her. The memories were there, vague, uncomfortable conversations I'd indeed minimized. I thought she was stressed about school. I thought we were fine. "Even if that's true," I said slowly, "it doesn't justify what you did." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. I should have been clearer. I should have ended things before starting something new. But Nathan, be honest. Would it have changed anything? If I'd come to you 6 months ago and said I wanted a divorce, would you have fought for us? Or would you have been relieved?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say I would have fought. I wanted to believe I would have done anything to save our marriage. But standing there in our kitchen at 2 a.m., I realized I didn't know the answer. "I have something for you," Emma said quietly. She went to her purse, pulled out a large manila envelope, and set it on the table. "I was going to give these to you tomorrow, but since we're here now," I knew what was in the envelope before I opened it. Divorce papers, neatly prepared, professionally formatted, all the details already filled in. "You've had these ready," I said. "How long?" 3 weeks. So tonight, the whole celebration was real. My achievement is real, Nathan. This, she gestured at the papers, is also real. Both things can be true. I pulled out the papers, flipped through them. She was asking for almost nothing. She'd keep her car, her books, some furniture. The apartment lease was in my name. She didn't want it. No alimony, clean split. At the bottom was a line for my signature. "You've made this very easy," I said. I tried to be fair. Fair. I laughed again. "Yeah, sure." We stood there in silence. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of traffic, of the city moving through its night. Inside, our marriage was ending with paperwork and clinical discussions about fairness. "I'm leaving in the morning," Emma said finally. "Going to stay with Sarah until I move to Boston in August. I'll come back for my things next week when you're at work. I think it's better if we don't see each other for a while." Of course. Efficient. "Nathan, you know what the worst part is?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see it. Any of it. I'm trained to notice when structures are wrong, when something doesn't fit. But I walked around for a year not seeing that my marriage was collapsing. "What does that say about me?" Emma's expression softened slightly. "It says you trusted me. That's not a flaw. It feels like one right now." She moved toward the bedroom, then paused. "For what it's worth, I did love you. I probably still do in some way. But love isn't always enough, is it?" I didn't answer. She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard her moving around, packing. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the divorce papers, a pen in my hand. I could have refused to sign. I could have made this complicated, drawn it out, fought it. Part of me wanted to make her hurt the way I was hurting. But I kept thinking about her question. "Would you have fought for us?" The honest answer was no. Not because I didn't love her, but because I'd been letting us slip away for years. She'd just been brave enough to acknowledge it first. At 3:47 a.m., I signed the papers. Emma emerged from the bedroom with 2 suitcases around 4:15. She saw the signed documents on the table, and something crossed her face. Surprise? Maybe, or disappointment. Like she'd expected me to fight after all. "That was fast," she said. "You wanted efficient." She picked up the papers, folded them carefully, put them in her purse. "I'll file these on Monday." "Great. Nathan." "Just go, Emma. Please." She hesitated at the door, her hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought she might say something more. Something that would make this make sense. Instead, she just nodded and left. I sat at that kitchen table until dawn, watching the light change, thinking about all the things I should have noticed and didn't. The way she'd stopped saying we and started saying I. The way her eyes had glazed over when I talked about work. The way she'd begun scheduling her life around mine rather than with mine. At 6 a.m., I made coffee. At 7, I called in sick to work. At 8, I started looking at apartment listings. If she was moving on, I would too. Different place, different space. Clean break. But I didn't delete her number. I didn't block her email. Some part of me, foolish and stubborn, kept waiting for her to reach out, to say she'd made a mistake, to ask if we could try again. She never did. I found a new place by mid-June. A loft downtown, industrial and modern. Nothing like the cozy apartment Emma and I had shared. I threw myself into work, taking on projects I'd previously avoided. Complex builds, challenging clients, anything to occupy my mind. My boss, Michael, noticed the change. "You're different," he said one afternoon, reviewing my designs for a museum extension. Sharper, more willing to take risks. Just focused, I said. Or running from something. He gave me a knowing look. How's Emma? Haven't seen her at the office parties lately. She got her PhD. Moved to Boston for a research position. And you're here. And I'm here. Michael didn't push, which I appreciated. But the conversation made me realize I hadn't told anyone about the divorce. Not my parents, not my friends. I'd just been existing in this strange limbo, legally separated but not emotionally processed. I told my parents in July over a Sunday phone call. My mom cried. My dad asked if I wanted him to come down. I said no, said I was fine, said all the things you're supposed to say. They didn't believe me, but they let it go. August 1st came and went. I knew Emma was starting her new job, beginning her new life with Jordan Mitchell. I wondered if she thought about me, if she regretted anything, if she'd told her new colleagues about her ex-husband who'd supported her through graduate school only to be left behind. Probably not. Emma wasn't one for regrets. September arrived, and with it, a strange sense of relief. I was sleeping better, working better. The apartment downtown had become mine, filled with my books, my art, my choices. I started dating casually, nothing serious. Went out with a lawyer named Jennifer twice, a teacher named Allison 3 times. Neither went anywhere, but I wasn't looking for anywhere. I was looking for distraction. In October, my friend Marcus, one of the few people I'd told about the divorce, set me up with his wife's sister, Rebecca. She was a journalist, sharp and funny, with this way of asking questions that made you want to tell her everything. We met for drinks, which turned into dinner, which turned into a walk along the river at midnight. "So you're recently divorced," she said as we walked. "How recently?" "Finalized in August. Separated in May." "And you're already dating? Is that a problem?" "Not a problem. Just interesting." She smiled. "Most people take longer to process. Maybe I processed while I was still married." "Did you?" She stopped, turned to face me. "Or are you just really good at compartmentalizing?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know," I admitted. "Probably the second thing." Rebecca laughed. "Honest. I like that." She started walking again. "Tell me something real about your marriage. Not the official story, something true." I thought about it. "I stopped knowing her," I finally said. "Somewhere along the way, she became a stranger who shared my space. And I let it happen. I convinced myself that was normal, that marriage meant growing apart a little. That's sad." "Yeah, but also common. Most people don't admit it." She looked at me. "You're not what I expected." "What did Marcus tell you?" "That you were an architect. Recently divorced, probably emotionally unavailable but worth meeting anyway." She grinned. "He was right about the architect part." We dated for a few weeks. It was easy, uncomplicated. Rebecca didn't push for commitment or future plans. She seemed content to exist in the present, which was exactly what I needed. But one night in November, lying in her bed after a particularly nice evening, she said something that changed things. "You know you're not over her, right?" I propped myself up on one elbow. "What?" "Emma, you're not over her. You barely talk about her, which means you're thinking about her constantly. You check your phone like you're waiting for a message. And sometimes, when you think I'm not looking, you get this expression, like you're somewhere else entirely." "That's not." "It's okay," Rebecca interrupted. "I'm not mad. But I like you, Nathan, and I don't want to be a placeholder while you figure out your feelings." "You're not a placeholder." "Maybe not. But I'm not the main story either." She sat up, pulled the sheet around herself. "I think you're a good guy who got hurt and is trying to move forward. But you're not ready for forward yet." We broke up that night. Amicably, with a hug and promises to stay friends that we both knew we wouldn't keep. She was right, of course. I wasn't over Emma. I just convinced myself I was, because the alternative was admitting I'd spent 6 months waiting for someone who was never coming back. December came. The divorce was 4 months finalized. I started therapy. Not because I thought I needed it, but because my mom kept suggesting it and I ran out of excuses. Dr. Patterson was in her 50s, with gray hair and an unsettling ability to see through bullshit. "Tell me about the night she left," she said in our third session. "I've told you. She gave me divorce papers at her graduation celebration." "No, tell me what you felt, not what happened." I was quiet for a long moment. "Stupid," I finally said. "I felt stupid, like everyone there knew except me. Like I'd been walking around wearing a sign that said, 'Clueless husband,' and everyone could see it but me. Did they know? Some of them. Her friends definitely did. That's what made it worse. Realizing I was the last to know about my own marriage ending. That must have been humiliating. It was. The word came out harder than I intended. It still is. Every time I think about it, I feel like an idiot. Why do you think she did it that way? Publicly? I thought about this. A lot. I hesitated. I think she wanted witnesses. Like she was afraid if we did it privately, I'd convince her to stay. Or convince her she was wrong. The crowd was a buffer. Did you want to convince her to stay? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I ran my hands through my hair. But here's the thing, I don't think I wanted to stay because I loved her. I wanted to stay because leaving meant admitting I'd wasted 9 years. Dr. Patterson wrote something down. That's a significant realization. Is it? It just makes me feel worse. Like I was going through the motions as much as she was. Perhaps you were. But Nathan, you're allowed to feel betrayed and also recognize that the relationship wasn't working. Both things can be true. Emma had said something similar that night. Both things can be true. I hated that she was right. January arrived. 1 year since Emma had defended her dissertation. I marked the date unconsciously, realized I was doing it, felt pathetic. At work, I'd been promoted senior architect now, my own team, bigger projects. The professional success felt hollow. I dated sporadically, nothing serious. I went to therapy weekly. I convinced myself I was healing. Then February came, and everything changed. I was at a coffee shop, not our old place, somewhere new downtown, working on designs for a public library. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Nathan, it's Sarah. Emma's friend. Can we talk? It's important." I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "About what?" "Not over text. Can you meet me? Today, if possible." Every instinct said no. Sarah was Emma's friend, Emma's confidant. Whatever she wanted, it would bring me back into a world I'd spent 9 months escaping. But curiosity won. Starbucks on Clark Street. 1 hour. She was already there when I arrived, nursing a latte at a corner table. She looked nervous, which was unusual. Sarah had always struck me as someone who was never nervous. She saw me, waved, and I felt my stomach knot. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "What's this about, Sarah?" She took a breath. "Emma doesn't know I'm here. She'd kill me if she knew." "Okay. I need to tell you something. About that night. About the divorce." She looked down at her coffee. "I felt guilty about it for months, and I can't anymore. You deserve to know the truth." My heart started racing. "What truth?" "Emma didn't cheat on you." The words didn't make sense. I'd seen the emails. The messages from Jordan Mitchell. Yes, she did. I read her email. I know what you read. But Jordan is a woman. Dr. Jordan Mitchell. She's Emma's mentor, nothing more. Those emails about weekend visits? They were about research collaboration. About building the study that got Emma her position. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. But she said, "She told me about Cambridge, about a conference. There was no affair, Nathan. Emma made it up." "Why would she do that?" Sarah's eyes met mine, full of something like pity. "Because she needed you to hate her. She needed you to sign those papers without fighting." "That doesn't make any sense." "She had a job offer in Boston. An incredible opportunity, once-in-a-lifetime stuff. But she knew you'd never leave Chicago. Your family's here, your career, everything. And she knew if she asked you to choose, you'd say you'd come with her, but you'd resent her for it. She'd watched her mother do that. give up everything to follow her father's career, then spend 30 years bitter about it. Emma didn't want that for either of you. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So she made me hate her instead. She thought it would be easier, cleaner. If you thought she betrayed you, you'd let her go. You'd move on. Easier. I stood up, my chair scraping loud against the floor. She let me believe she'd been cheating for a year. She let me feel like an idiot, like I'd missed all these signs. I know. I told her it was cruel. We fought about it. That's what you overheard that night, me calling her out for the plan. But she was convinced it was the kindest way. Kindest. The word was acid in my mouth. There was nothing kind about it. She thought you'd get over her faster if you hated her. Instead of spending years wondering if you could have made it work long distance, if you should have tried harder. She wanted to give you a clean reason to move on. I sat back down heavily. My mind was racing through every moment of that night, reinterpreting it all through this new lens. Her calmness, her clinical approach, the way she'd let me believe the worst. Why are you telling me this now? Sarah looked uncomfortable. Because Emma's been miserable. She got everything she wanted, the job, the research, the life in Boston. But she's been calling me at 2 a.m. crying about what she did to you. About how she ruined the one good thing in her life because she was too afraid to try to make it work. Good, I said and meant it. She should feel bad. Nathan. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to tell me she's suffering and expect me to care. She made her choice. A calculated, manipulative choice that treated me like a variable in one of her experiments. She was trying to protect you. From what? A difficult conversation? An actual honest ending? I stood up again. You know what, Sarah? This is worse. Before, I thought she'd fallen in love with someone else. I thought it was human. Messy and painful, but human. Now I find out it was all a lie. All this psychological manipulation because she didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. She didn't trust herself, Sarah said quietly. She was afraid she'd convince herself to stay, to give up her dream, and then hate you for it later. She'd seen it happen to her mother. She couldn't let it happen to her. I grabbed my coat. Tell Emma I hope her research is everything she wanted. Tell her I hope it was worth it. Nathan, wait. But I was already walking out. I didn't go back to work. I drove to the lake, parked, and sat in my car for 3 hours, watching the winter waves. Everything I thought I knew about that night, about my marriage, about Emma, it was all wrong. She hadn't stopped loving me. She'd loved me enough to make me hate her. Or she'd loved herself enough to prioritize her career over honesty. I couldn't tell which interpretation was true, and it made me furious. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop and looked at Emma's social media. I'd avoided it for months, hadn't wanted to see her happy new life. But now I needed to see her, needed to understand what Sarah had told me. Her Instagram was mostly professional, research photos, conference presentations, lab equipment. But there were personal posts too. A photo from October. Her alone at a coffee shop, staring out a window, caption reading, "Autumn in Boston." She looked lonely. A post from December. A Christmas tree in what was clearly an empty apartment. No decorations except lights. First solo Christmas. Weird. And then, from 3 weeks ago, a sunset over the Charles River. Some decisions feel right and wrong at the same time. I closed the laptop. I didn't know what to feel. Angry, definitely. Betrayed, absolutely. But underneath it was something else. Something that felt uncomfortably like hope, and I hated myself for it. Dr. Patterson's take, when I told her in our next session, was characteristically direct. So she lied to protect you from a difficult truth, or she lied to protect herself from having to be honest. Which is worse? I don't know. Both. And now you know she still cares about you. What are you going to do with that information? Nothing. It doesn't change anything. Doesn't it? You've spent 9 months believing your marriage ended because she stopped loving you. Now you know it ended because she loved you but prioritized her career. That's a different story. It's still a story that ends with divorce papers. True. But it's a story that might have a different next chapter. Dr. Patterson leaned forward. Nathan, here's my question. If Emma had come to you last May and said, "I have this incredible opportunity in Boston, but I can't ask you to give up your life in Chicago, so I think we should divorce," what would you have said? I opened my mouth to answer and couldn't, because I didn't know. Would I have fought? Would I have suggested long distance? Would I have offered to move? Or would I have been secretly relieved to have a clear, guilt-free end? I don't know, I admitted. Then maybe she was right to be afraid of that conversation. That doesn't make what she did okay. No, but it makes it human. Flawed and misguided, but human. She studied me. You're allowed to forgive her and still not take her back, you know? Those are separate decisions. But were they? Because sitting in that office, I realized I'd spent 9 months not getting over Emma. I dated other people, moved to a new apartment, gotten a promotion, gone to therapy. I'd done everything you're supposed to do after a divorce. But I was still checking my phone for her messages. Still thinking about her when I woke up. Still seeing her in every crowded room. February gave way to March. I didn't contact Emma. I didn't respond to Sarah's follow-up messages. I just existed, processing, thinking. Then, 3 years after Emma served me those divorce papers, my phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Saturday. "Nathan? It's Emma." Her voice hit me like a physical thing. "How did you get my number? I needed to hear your voice. I know I have no right." "You're right. You don't. Sarah told you, didn't she? About what really happened." "Yeah, that was quite a revelation. 3 years. And I've regretted it every single day." Her voice cracked. "I'm in Chicago for a conference. Can we meet? Please. I need to apologize in person." Every rational part of me said no. But at 11:45, I was walking into Halligan's, a dive bar on Damon. Emma was already there, looking older, tired. She looked up when I walked in, and something in her expression broke. "You came," she said. I slid into the booth across from her. "You have 5 minutes." "I'm sorry. What I did was cruel and selfish. I was terrified of ending up like my mother, terrified of asking you to sacrifice your life. So I made the choice for both of us in the worst possible way. You made me think you'd been cheating for a year. I know, and I've paid for it every single day. I got everything I wanted, the research, the career, and none of it matters because I wake up every morning missing you." I watched her cry and felt nothing, or everything. "What do you want me to say?" "I want to know there's a chance you could forgive me someday. You want absolution. I want to know I didn't destroy the only person who ever really knew me." I looked at her, at the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands shook around her glass. "I want to understand why you couldn't trust me. We were married for 9 years, and you couldn't trust me with the truth." Emma was quiet for a long time. "I failed us. I got so deep in my own head that I didn't give you a chance to write the story with me." "That's a very academic way of saying you lied to me." "Yes, I lied. I manipulated you. I treated you like a subject instead of my husband." She finished her whiskey. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know the truth. That I loved you. That I still love you." I stood up. "I need to go. Will you ever forgive me?" I looked down at her, at the woman I'd married and mourned. "I don't know. Ask me again in another 3 years." I walked out and didn't look back. I walked 6 blocks before I realized I was crying. Not because I was sad. Because I was furious that she'd taken away even my anger, made it complicated. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Emma, thank you for coming. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find someone who deserves you." I stared at that message for an hour. Then I wrote, "Safe flight." That was 3 years ago. 6 years total since the divorce. Emma never reached out again. Sarah told me she left Boston, took a position in Seattle, started over. I told Sarah to stop telling me things. But here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It's not the lie that destroys you. It's learning the truth and realizing the lie was more comfortable. For 3 years, I knew why my marriage ended. She cheated. Simple, painful, but simple. Then I learned she chose her career over honesty. She played God with my emotions, decided what I could handle, treated our marriage like a problem to solve rather than navigate together. I'm 41 now, still an architect, still in Chicago. I dated someone seriously for a while. A writer named Michelle who was patient and kind and eventually told me she couldn't compete with a ghost. She was right. Last month, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line, "I owe you this." Inside was a single sentence. "I'm getting married in October. I needed you to know I finally found the courage to be honest with someone. I hope you found the same. E." I stared at that email for 3 days. Then I replied, "Congratulations. I hope he makes you brave." Her response came an hour later. "She does. And Nathan, I hope you know that what I did to you wasn't about you being not enough. It was about me being too afraid. You deserved better. You deserved honesty. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that." I never responded, but I didn't delete it either. Because here's what I've learned. Love doesn't die from betrayal. It transforms into something complicated where you can miss someone and hate them simultaneously, understand why they did something and still be destroyed by it. Emma took more than our marriage. She took the possibility of choosing our ending together. She wrote the story alone and cast me as the audience. That's the betrayal I carry. Sometimes late at night, I still wonder what would have happened if she'd just told me the truth. If she'd said, "I have this opportunity and I'm terrified, but let's figure it out together." Would I have let her go? Gone with her? Would we have tried and failed anyway? I'll never know. That's what she took. Not just us, but the chance to find out who we could have been if she'd been brave enough to trust me with the truth. I heard through Marcus that Emma's wedding was beautiful, that she looked happy, that her wife is a journalist who apparently asks the hard questions Emma used to avoid. Good. I hope she's learned to answer them honestly. As for me, I'm still here, still working, still healing, still reaching for her side of the bed sometimes, even after 6 years. But I'm also finally, slowly, learning to reach for something else instead. Maybe not love yet, but possibility. The possibility that someday, I'll meet someone who chooses honesty over comfort, who trusts me enough to be afraid with me instead of for me. And when that happens, I'll be ready, because Emma taught me what I need. Not someone who protects me from difficult truths, but someone brave enough to face them beside me. That's the real ending. Not closure, not forgiveness, just the slow, painful process of learning that sometimes the worst betrayal isn't the lie someone tells you. It's the truth they decide you can't handle. Emma made that decision for both of us. And in doing so, she gave me the greatest gift and curse, the knowledge that I deserved better, and the reality that I loved someone who couldn't give it to me. I'm 41 years old. I'm an architect. I design buildings meant to last. I just wish I'd been able to build a marriage with the same foundation.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support. It all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.